What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto snapped and unleashed the Reaper within? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. Naruto Pav. My story is a complicated one, has been since the day I was born. My father the fourth Hokage saved the village by doing the only thing that could stop the feared nine-tailed Biju, Kurama. He sealed it in his newborn son, which just happened to be me. That was a long 21 years ago now. My father asked his predecessor, which was the third Hokage, to tell the village to treat me like a hero for my sacrifice, but it was in vain, as my death was what they truly wanted, as they thought that I was a reincarnation of the beast. I was hunted most of my childhood, and brought to the brink of death every time I was caught by the villagers. Anbu and the Hokage would always save me. I had no family or friends. My mother and my father both died in the sealing process to protect me from Kurama's claw. I was that kid in class that would always mess up and get laughed at, but I had attention when that happened, so I didn't even try to stop it. It was the only time in my childhood that anyone ever noticed me, apart from being called the demon brat. I was 12 years old when I first found out that I was Kurama's jailer from one of my own teachers, who had lured me to steal a certain item from the Hokage to become a genin. I was told to steal the scroll and learn a move and I would pass, but things went downhill from there. Both of my teachers fought it out, and the one that told me to steal the scroll was arrested. When I was put on my genin team, I thought that I was the luckiest guy on the planet. Well, partly. I had the girl of my dreams on my team, Sakura, but unfortunately she had the guy of her dreams on the team, also Sasuke. It's been a long time since I have thought of both of them, but I am getting off track. We were given D-ranked missions as every genin team had, but we got our first C-ranked mission and it turned out to be an A-ranked mission. We continued on anyway. We fought a member of the Hidden Mist who had gone rogue. Turned out that he helped us in the mission along with his friend Haku, who I thought was a girl. After that mission we were accepted into the Chunin exams and were faced by the Sand Village Suna. A member that was around the same age as I am turned out to house a Biju as well, the one-tailed Shukaku. His name is Gaara. We faced off and I came out the victor, but barely. That was when I met Jiraiya, a massive pervert but a great teacher nonetheless. I took a training trip with him for 3 years after I turned 14 in the betrayal of Sasuke, who I had become close friends with, even going as far as to call him my brother. We fought it out at the Valley of the End and he defeated me, leaving to join Orochimaru. When my training trip was done we had the Akatsuki to deal with, a criminal organization that was made up of S-class missing nen. They hunted the Biju and killed their tenants when extracting them. Gaara was one of the ones to survive, but Barley, he actually lost his life, but if it weren't for a great old lady he would not be here today. She had saved his life by sacrificing her own. We faced off against Orochimaru to try and find Sasuke, and that was also a failure. After a couple of months doing missions and after the death of Jiraiya, our village was attacked by the Akatsuki, or what was left of it. They basically wiped the Leaf Village of the face of the planet. I was training to become a sage to stop it, and when I came back things didn't go as planned. I defeated a few of them, but there was one left. He struck down a girl that I knew from my classes in the academy and she confessed her love for me. Then the Kyuubi started to take control and 8 of its 9 tails came out, and I had defeated Pain and learned who my father was. I met another student of Jiraiya, Nagato, and he had told me that he wants to end all war. He sacrificed himself and brought back members of the Leaf who had died in the assault. Then there was Konan, a beautiful woman with blue hair. I have seen her on my travels every now and then. She was Nagato's partner in Akatsuki, but they had known each other since they were kids. After the start of the reconstruction of the Leaf Village, I went to plead to the Reikige to stop him from trying to kill Sasuke, but my attempt failed. That was when I first met Tobi. He spoke some words that I cannot remember and told me that Sasuke was a true avenger. I do not know what fully happened at the cage meeting, but Gaara told me his version. When I had finished talking with Gaara I was upset, to say the least. Then what made my day worse was that Sakura confessed her love for me, but I knew it was a lie and was even told so by Sai. She wanted to kill Sasuke herself. After I had followed them and had seen Sasuke in the state he was in from fighting Danzo, I knew I would have to face Sasuke, who I still thought of as a brother, again. But Tobi took him away, and that was the start of the war. It went on for 2 years until I ended up fighting Tobi and his Geto Mazo, along with Kakashi, Guy and Killer Bee, and ended up winning, ending the war. Sasuke went back to the village because I finally beat some sense into his thick skull. I hadn't talked to Sakura in those 2 years, or anyone else for that matter. At the start of the war, I was learning to control Kurama's power, and didn't know what was going on, until I was able to sense the war itself. Then, B and I left our Turtle Island, and made our way to the battlefield. During our fight with Tobi, we were joined by Might Guy, and my old sensei, Kakashi Hitaki. During my battle with Tobi was when I finally made friends with Kurama, and achieved my full Biju form, too. That was 2 years ago when I was 19 and am now 21. I sit here on the edge of a village that I don't even know its name. I can't show myself in a town unless I want to be targeted by bounty hunters looking for a quick payday. They never learn. I look to the stars every night for hours on end wondering if there was someone else out there that was even remotely in the same boat as I was. Cursed and forgotten, thrown to the wolves after everything I had done. I see shooting stars often now and wonder what it would be like to fly among them even for a little while. I never knew how much my life was about to change. Naruto Pav End. Ah, Commander, you really have to see this. Joker's voice came over the radio. What is it, Joker? She asked from her personal quarters. She was a well-built woman, a small cut above her left eye. She had shoulder-length red hair with blue eyes. She had on the Cerberus dress uniform. We went searching for some element zero on the planet below, and Eddie found signs of life, but there is no known race that inhabits this part of the galaxy. Could be a whole new species that the galaxy has yet to see. Get the 2 Cerberus officers, I forget their names, into the briefing room. I will talk it over with them. That would be Miranda Lawson and Jacob Taylor, Commander. Came Edie's voice over the comm. Yeah, right, them too, she said as she headed towards the elevator. Commander, you just got onto this ship and already forgetting names. I thought it would take a while longer. Joker laughed. Ha ha, very funny, Joker, just tell them. She smiled. Will do. Miranda and Jacob were waiting for her in the briefing room and had been told a little about the current situation and were more than shocked about it. Commander, we have to check it out, Miranda said. Miranda was a beautiful woman with long black hair that fell past her shoulders. She wore a white and black uniform, most of it being white apart from the sleeves and the boots, which reached up to her upper thigh, also having the Cerberus logo on her chest. Jacob was a well-built man with dark skin, and his uniform was black with a little bit of white on the back under his arms, along with the Cerberus symbol on the uniform's chest. What about the mission? We have to get these people that the elusive man has recommended, Jacob argued. What's the difference between going down to this planet and going to get supplies at the Citadel, then rushing back to Omega? Miranda argued back while Shepard watched them. Both of you settle down. You still don't realize this, but this is my ship and it goes where I say it goes, got it? She said as she crossed her arms over her chest. Both turned to look at her and nodded. Good, now we are going down there to check it out. Maybe we can get someone who would be a great help, otherwise we will leave and tell the council about it later. Now go suit up and meet me at the Mako. Ah, Commander, we don't have a Mako anymore. Joker's voice came over the radio. God damn it, I keep forgetting, she hissed. Naruto sat watching the stars when he saw another shooting one, or what seemed to be one, and it was heading straight towards him. He started to panic when he saw that it wasn't disappearing like the others but was starting to come down to the surface. What a way to go, fight and win in a war and get taken out by a falling star, he thought with a small smile as he closed his eyes. He felt a large wind rush past him with incredible heat and then heard the snapping of trees behind him. He opened his eyes and glanced over his shoulder from where he was sitting. What he saw shocked him. It looked like a huge hunk of metal with steam coming off of it. He stood up and looked at it for a moment before something made a loud hissing sound and a compartment started to open. I don't think this is a star. You don't say, Kurama chimed in. Thank you, Captain Obvious. He cautiously walked over to the door only to get thrown back from a blue unknown force and landed on the ground in a defensive stance. Who's there? He called out. He saw a faint yellow glow from within the ship. Commander, this language is a lot similar to Japanese back on Earth. A voice came back, but he was unable to understand. Sorry, I don't understand you, could you repeat that? He asked, scratching the back of his head. Out of the metal room stepped out 3 people, 2 women and a dark-skinned man. They all wore strange-looking uniforms, and the woman with red hair looked like she was wearing a type of armor which had 2 strange symbols on the chest plate. My name is Jane Shepard. Man, this is weird. Can't you give him something so I don't have to talk into this Omni tool? She asked. Naruto could understand a little bit of what she was saying but only picked up the word name. Alright, just hang on a second. The second woman spoke. My name is Miranda, she said as she approached him, her voice echoed around him. I'm going to give you this earpiece, it will help us understand you and you to understand us. Do you understand? Naruto looked at her and scratched the back of his head again. Sure, I guess. Miranda handed him an earpiece that came down into a makeshift mic down the side of his cheek. This feels weird. You will get used to it, Miranda said as she walked back to the ship. What's your name? The man asked. Naruto Uzumaki, or Namikaze, take your pick. He replied. Take your pick? It's very complicated, and I really don't feel like explaining it all right now. What I do want to know is, what the hell this thing is, Naruto said, pointing to the crashed ship. What this? Shepard asked. Yeah, that thing that came crashing down and almost hit me. Then you three popped out of it and something hit me and I was like, what the hell? This is our ship, the redhead replied, but we're not anywhere near the ocean. He growled while sitting down. Why are you sitting? Miranda asked. I sit when I'm confused. Making Shepard chuckle. Let me try and explain, we came from the sky. No shit, you almost hit me. He growled again. And I was just sitting here minding my own business and POW. He said, making a loud noise with his hands to make it easier to explain. Calm down, Naruto, Kurama advised, they're probably from a more advanced civilization. Remember, how you used to wonder if there was other life out there, back when you were 7? I didn't think you'd remember that, Naruto thought back to the fox. Why didn't you move out of the way? I mean, you would have seen us coming, right? Jacob asked. Yeah, I thought you were a shooting star and I thought what a way to go. He smiled, which looked like a fox. A shooting star? Miranda asked. I see a few every night. Ever since the war ended I watch the skies every night. War? Shepard asked. Yeah, a couple of years ago, all 5 great nations were allied together in the 4th Great Ninja War, against Tobi and the Akatsuki. Ninja? Miranda asked internally. Who's that? Shepard asked, as Naruto sighed and rubbed his forehead. I really don't feel like getting into it at the moment. Go find one of the hidden villages if you want to know more. He sighed as he laid on his back and returned to looking at the stars. So Naruto. Shepard started. So you remember his name but not ours. Jacob yelled at her. Where would be the closest village? Miranda inquired, then thinking, this could be interesting. About 2 days' walk to the west you will find the Leaf Village, but they won't let in strangers, unless they change the rules. He said as he yawned. Could you be our guide? Miranda asked. I'm not going back there, I will be killed on sight. This raised the others' curiosity. Are you a criminal of some sort? Shepard asked. Not really, no, but to them I am. He said as he stood up. It's really complicated to get into and would be rather troublesome. Now you're starting to sound like Shikamaru, quipped the fox, making Naruto laugh in his mind. So you can't take us to the Leaf Village, then where is another village? Jacob asked. About 3 weeks run to the south. We don't have 3 weeks, Shepard. I know that, Naruto, if we can promise your safety, will you take us to the Leaf Village? I can protect myself, thank you very much, and I have history in the Leaf and I don't really want to go back. We will give you credits. Miranda offered him. What the hell are those? She sighed, this was not going anywhere. Okay Naruto, how about this? You take us to the Leaf Village and get us in to see their leader, we will tell you whatever you want to know. Naruto stood in thought for a moment and then nodded once and picked up his black cloak which had red clouds on it in random order. He put on a straw hat with white strands of material going down covering his face. Alright, follow me. Granny Tsunade is going to be pissed though. When you meet her, try not to piss her off too much. The 3 nodded and walked behind him. The 3 were marveled at how thick the trees were in what was supposedly fire country. Naruto had been telling them little bits about the 5 elemental nations and he had learned that they were from space and were on some sort of mission. The walls of Konoha came into view a few hours before they arrived at the main gate and Naruto had put the cloak away and pulled out a white one with black clouds. They hadn't asked about it and all of them continued on. The gate was huge. Shepard was in awe over it. Miranda and Jacob had both noticed that Naruto was now at the back of the group, as they walked a few meters into the gate before they were called to a stop by 2 men in green flag jackets. This isn't a village, Jacob whispered to Miranda, this is a city. Who are you and what business do you have here? One of the men asked. Naruto stepped forward as they wouldn't be able to talk to them. He took off his straw hat and both of them gasped in shock. Anbu. Suddenly Naruto was on the ground, 4 swords were at his neck. The three that were traveling with him pulled out their weapons. "We must congratulate you three, he has been missing for 2 years." One of the Anbu spoke. He had a white mask with the design of a snake on it. Miranda and Shepard activated their Omni tools and spoke into them. "We have come to speak with Tsunade," Shepard stated. "And you shall, this criminal has a lot of explaining to do." The Anbu spoke again as he struck several points on the blonde and he was dragged through the streets towards the large building at the far end of the village. The three gave sympathetic looks to him, but he just looked away from them with a glazed look on his face. "Was that the right thing to do?" Jacob asked. "I don't know," Shepard replied as she started to follow them. The village had changed in 2 years, there was some still rebuilding and children were playing in the streets. Some of the people who saw Naruto were shocked to see him, some had tears in their eyes, others spat at him, which made the three spacers confused. The three followed the Anbu into a large room where Naruto was forced onto his knees. "Please wait here until the Hokage has arrived." The three nodded and they left. Naruto had not made a move and still had a glazed look in his eyes. "Naruto, are you okay?" Shepard asked as she kneeled down next to him. "I just thought that I might have had a better reunion." He smiled at her. "Man, that guy never gives me a break." "You knew him?" "Yeah, I fought him in a thing we have here called the Chunin exams. I totally kicked his ass." He chuckled. "I wonder how his cousin is," he said as he sat back on the ground. "Confused about something?" "No. Hungry. I haven't eaten since this morning." "You had like 30 bowls of that ramen stuff," Jacob said in shock. "Yeah, but that's just a snack." Naruto whined, making the three wonder how he was so fit. The door on the far room opened, revealing a very busty woman. Both Shepard and Miranda felt self-conscious after they first saw her. Tsunade has fair skin and brown eyes. She has long blonde hair which is tied into 2 ponytails using red bands, except for her bangs, which are parted in the middle and fall down the sides of her face. She wears a grass-green robe underneath. She wears a gray, kimono-style blouse with no sleeves, held closed by a broad, dark bluish-gray obi that matches her trousers. Her blouse is closed quite low, revealing her rather sizable cleavage. "Naruto," she growled. "Hey Granny Tsunade, miss me?" He yelled at her in a happy voice. "I should kill you right here," she yelled at him. The others stood in shock at the conversation between the two got even more heated and Naruto was sent through a wall and 2 Anbu members brought him back in. They were surprised at the woman's strength. "Where have you been for the last 2 years?" "Oh, you know, here, there, a little to the left, then a bit to the right." He smiled. She approached him again and they thought that she was going to hit him again, but she leaned down close and hugged him and cried into his shoulder. "You did it, didn't you? You stopped the war and sent Sasuke back?" Naruto nodded, much to the other's shock. "Why didn't you return, Naruto? Why go rogue?" "I didn't go rogue, Grandma. I simply wanted to see the rest of the world like the pervy sage." He smiled a sad smile. "You're already too much like him, you know. All you need is the long white hair and funny-looking shoes and you're there." She chuckled as she stood up. He was unable to move as he had been hit in several nerve connections from the Anbu member. For the first time Tsunade noticed the little earpiece and pointed to it. "What's this, Naruto?" "Oh, these guys gave it to me so I could understand them." He smiled, pointing to the 3 behind him. "Ah, sorry about all that, he just has caused some trouble is all." Tsunade smiled as she sat down at her desk. "My name is Tsunade, Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village. What can I do for you?" she asked. Miranda walked up to her and gave her an earpiece. "My name is Jane Shepard. You may not believe us, but we came from the stars. We had been searching your planet for materials that would help us in our mission when we noticed life signs on the planet." "You came from the stars?" "I know it's hard to believe, but they almost hit me with their ship." Naruto growled. "You thought it was a shooting star." Shepard yelled at him, making him pout at her. "So, you still almost hit me." He yelled back. "What is your mission?" Tsunade asked. "This is going to be even more insane than us coming from the stars." Miranda spoke. Both the ninja listened as they were told about the Reapers and how they wiped out all living things 50,000 years ago. How that these people in front of them were risking their very lives in trying to save the galaxy. "So we came down here to see if you could offer us any aid in our mission." Shepard spoke as she watched Naruto struggle to stand up, much to Tsunade's shock. "Naruto?" she asked. Where do I sign up?" he said with a shit-eating grin. "Sorry, but we need trained warriors," Jacob said, to which Naruto and Tsunade raised an eyebrow. This didn't go unnoticed by Shepard. Is he cut out for it? She asked. If anyone was cut out for it and you all wanted to survive, he is the one that could pull it off. He is of course the #1 most unpredictable ninja that the elemental countries has ever seen. He stopped the last war single-handedly. He's probably the strongest warrior on our world, and we start training our shinobi at a young age. They graduate from the academy at age 12, then start their training from an experienced sensei while taking on missions for the village. Naruto has been doing incredibly difficult to impossible missions since he started his career, she grinned. There was a knock at the door and Tsunade gestured for them to come in, only to see narrator's eyes flash red as he turned to face her, his back turned away from the door. Shepard looked behind her to see a young woman near the age of Naruto, but the strangest thing was her pink hair. What is it, Sakura? Tsunade asked. Great, her. Could this day get any worse? Naruto thought. It could, but that would only be if the Uchiha shows up, Kurama responded. But, there are people here that aren't total assholes. Such as? Your friends. Shikamaru, Choji, Hinata, Kiba, Shino, Neji. In his own way, Lee, Tenten. Not too sure about Ino, though. Iruka, Kakashi, that crazy snake woman, Guy, Shizune, and Tsunade. Okay, you have a point. I'm still not ready to return here full-time. Probably never will be. That's up to you, the fox stated, and I'm behind you either way. Had to be, being stuck in here. Oh ha ha. It's too much fun picking at you, kid. Is it true? She asked as she approached the male blonde. We thought you were dead, she said as she reached for him, only for her to get a look from Tsunade which made her stop. Sakura, now is not the time. I am in the middle of an important meeting, as you can see. Lady Tsunade? Sakura, get the hell out. She shouted and she left the office with tears in her eyes. Shepard and the others were confused and thought that there must have been history between the two. Plus, the way Naruto seemed to space out for a minute piqued her curiosity. I will need to find out about that later on, Shepard thought to herself. Calm down, Naruto, Tsunade ordered, and he unclenched his hands and his eyes turned back to their normal blue. She hasn't been able to apologize to you, ya no. There is no need, Naruto replied in a sad tone. I fulfilled my promise to her, there is nothing left for us to discuss, he said, his voice breaking a little. Tsunade was saddened by the news but looked to Shepard to see that there was something that she was wanting to ask. Jane, is there something that you would like to ask? Shepard looked up to her and smiled. You wouldn't have any metal or something that is impenetrable around this village, would you? She asked. Not here, we don't, but we could get some in the next few days if it is urgent, Tsunade replied. It's just that our ship took some damage and needs a few repairs. It needs to be airtight, otherwise we die from loss of air, and I don't plan on going out into the great beyond anytime soon. She continued to smile. I will do the best I can. If you would like, we could retrieve your ship and bring it here so you can work on it. Shepard nodded and Tsunade ordered in 2 Anbu, who nodded and headed for the ship with Jacob. As soon as they get back, the metal should be here. But for now I should offer you 2 some sort of place to stay. My old place should be fine, Grandma. Naruto smirked. Brat, what have I told you about calling me that? She yelled at him as he lost his senses in his legs again and fell to the floor. It should wear off in a while, but be sure to give them good exercise over the next few days. And for your idea, your apartment complex was torn down, Naruto. But there are some apartments we use for guests under the monument. Shepard and Miranda nodded and headed for the door. What's the monument? Shepard asked. The mountain with the faces carved onto it. Tsunade smiled. I will get Shizune to lead you there. Naruto, I need to have a few words with you. Naruto could only gulp. After a long talk with Tsunade, Naruto was walking the streets of Konoha, having an internal dialogue with his inner Biju. I know that seeing Sakura still hurt, kid, Kurama told Naruto, but would it be so bad to at least let them try to mend some fences? It's been 2 years, and not to sound too reminiscent, but you're starting to sound a bit like I did back before we finally made sense of our situation. I guess you're right, Kurama, Naruto replied. It couldn't hurt, could it? And who knows? Maybe this mission to the stars is just what you need, but it would be a shame to leave the planet on bad terms. We'll see. Shepard and Miranda followed the cheerful woman that Tsunade had introduced as Shizune. They had seen the pink-haired girl again, and she was talking to another blonde-haired girl probably around the same age. Shizune gave them a tour around the Leaf Village that they both found fascinating, especially when they saw a group of Anbu members jump overhead. Most people in the village gave them a curious glance from the weapons they had on their backs and the clothing that they wore. They had a two-bedroom apartment and it was nicely decorated with a fridge packed full of food, which they were hesitant on eating but did anyway. It had been around 5 hours since they had left Naruto with Tsunade and were starting to wonder what was going to happen to him. When they were sitting in the kitchen, Shepard was looking over some data pads while Miranda was starting a report when there was a knock on the door. Miranda and Shepard looked to each other and Shepard nodded, signaling Miranda to be ready, and headed for the door. To their surprise, it was the pink-haired girl they had seen earlier. "Hello?" Shepard said to the girl for her to understand through her Omni tool. Please don't take him away," she said as tears ran down her face. She collapsed to her knees and Shepard helped her stand and brought her inside and Miranda gave her a headset. "Please, you can't take him away," she pleaded to the commander as she was sat down on the couch. "This is about Naruto?" asked Miranda and Sakura nodded. "Please, he means too much to the village, too much to me, he can't leave, not again." She trailed off. Shepard looked at her and could only feel sad for her. "What's your name?" Shepard asked. Sakura Haruno," she said. "My name is Jane and this is Miranda. As you can probably tell, we aren't from here, we are on a very important mission," she said as the girl lifted her head and looked in her eyes. "If Naruto comes with us on our mission, we have a higher chance of surviving, but if he doesn't, I doubt that anyone here would be able to live in the benefits if he did stay here." What do you mean?" Sakura asked. "Our enemies seek to destroy the galaxy and everyone in it," Miranda told her, making her gasp. "Our mission is clear, we need to stop the Reapers from their goal. If Naruto goes with you, will I be able to see him again?" Shepard frowned at that. She had seen the way Naruto acted to her in the office. "Sakura?" Sakura turned her head to look at the redhead. "What was Naruto's promise to you?" Sakura's eye went wide and were filled with sadness. "When we were both 12 years old, we were put onto the same team along with a third member. We never got along with one another. I always hit Naruto and never noticed him. I always flaunted myself for Sasuke." "Sasuke?" Miranda asked. "Our third member. Ever since he was a kid, he had always been out for revenge on his brother who killed his entire clan to gain more power. He thought he was better than anyone else, especially Naruto. When Sasuke went rogue, Lady Tsunade sent a team after them. Naruto was on that team. Before they left, I asked him for one thing: to bring back Sasuke. He told me that it was a promise of a lifetime. See, Naruto is a man of his word. If he says it's a promise, he will never break it." It was almost 6 years later, but Sasuke returned home saying that Naruto beat him and ordered him back. 6 years? Miranda asked. "He was on a training trip for 3 of them. Then he had to deal with the Akatsuki after that before he even had a chance to go after Sasuke. When they were younger, they viewed each other as rivals and then as brothers." "What happened when Sasuke arrived back in the village?" Shepard asked. "All he said was that Naruto told him to get back to the Leaf. Then there was no word from Naruto until a couple of hours ago when you walked through the front gates with him," she said as tears fell from her eyes. "If we take him with us, there is a chance you will never see him again, Sakura." More tears fell from her eyes as she cried more, and her words weren't even recognizable. "That doesn't mean that you won't, Sakura. If Tsunade believes in him and he was able to end a war single-handed, there is no doubt that he will survive the mission." Shepard smiled at her. She could tell that Sakura had hope in her eyes. Sakura walked down the main street and for once in 4 years felt happy and had hope that she could fix things with Naruto, who she came to see more like a brother. She made friends with both Miranda and Jane. They seemed to be nice people, even if Miranda was a bit out there with her assumptions and that Jane was always trying to be funny. Most of the time she made her smile. She had been there for 2 hours learning about their mission and what Naruto would be doing. Most of the things she wasn't comfortable with, and Shepard assured her that they could handle themselves. Naruto was the person she was currently looking for. She had thought that he would instantly go to his favorite place when he was done with the Hokage, but he wasn't at the ramen stand. They didn't even know he was back. She had been searching for an hour and it was starting to get dark, and her hope was slightly faltering when she ran into someone and they both fell down. "I'm sorry, please let me help you up," a voice said above her, strangely familiar. She could see a white cloak with black clouds, something like the Akatsuki used to wear, and she was immediately on guard and jumped up and got into a fighting stance, but lowered when she saw who it was. "Naruto." "Sakura." Naruto replied. He had an indifferent look in his eyes. She jumped at him and wrapped her arms around his neck as she hugged him like she had only done twice before. when he defeated Pain and when she confessed her love for him. "What's up?" Naruto said, his arms hanging at his side. "Naruto?" she asked as she looked into his eyes only to see them flashing between red and blue. "I thought you would want to come have dinner with me," she said with a smile. "I've got a lot going on, Sakura," Naruto replied, "and a lot to think about." "Maybe later then?" she asked. "I've got a mission I've got to prepare for. This is unlike anything any shinobi's done before." "How long will you be gone?" she said as he turned his back to her. "I don't know. There's a chance no one will be coming back," he replied as he started to walk away, only come face to face with Sasuke. His onyx eyes only showing that he was at ease. If not, the Sharingan would be showing. He wore a white shirt opening showing his chest and wore dark blue ninja pants with shinobi sandals. "Dobi," he greeted. "Long time no see, what have you been doing for the last 2 years?" Naruto stopped. His conversation with Kurama earlier had made him rethink things, and he came to a conclusion. "Seeing the world," he answered, much like the Master Jiraiya did. "And you guys? Please Naruto, come have dinner with us," Sakura pleaded. "We can catch up, and would it really be so bad to try to be friends again?" "You know," the fox said the same thing. "So you'll come?" Sasuke said back to him, "And you now have conversations with the fox? Please Naruto, you're going away and there is a chance you won't be able to come back, please stay with us for just a little while," she pleaded again. "Why not?" he said as he walked away with Sasuke and Sakura. A couple of hours later, Naruto slammed the door to the apartment he was given while he waited for the ship to get fixed. Tsunade had told him that he was allowed to go and he had to promise he would survive because she knew that his promise was the best thing to get from the blonde. He walked into the apartment and threw the cloak on the couch as he headed for the bedroom. He went to bed, after a long tiring day, to be awoken in the middle of the night by a knock on his door. He sluggishly got out of bed and opened it to see a panting and seething Ino standing there. "What is it, Ino?" he asked as he rubbed the sleep out of his eyes, and as soon as he pulled his hand from his face he was slapped. "That was for staying away for 2 years. Do you know how many times Shikamaru, Choji and I got sent out to try to find you?" She growled at him only to get a look of confusion from Naruto. "One question, Ino," Naruto said. "Could this not wait till morning?" Miranda and Shepard were starting to get worried. Jacob had returned the day before with their ship and had already started repairs, but none of them had even heard a word from Naruto. They asked Tsunade about him, but she just said that he was nowhere in sight, not even in the apartment she loaned him, just a ruined door. Sakura had asked both of them if they had seen him, but they just shook their heads at the pinkette. It was the day before they decided to leave the planet. Shepard had ordered Miranda to tell nothing of this to the elusive man, and if she had heard that this got out she would kill her herself. Miranda agreed and destroyed the reports that she had been writing. Tsunade held a party that night and was shocked when Naruto had made an appearance in a new getup. He wore the top half of the original Akatsuki cloak, red and black, with a white shirt underneath, black shinobi pants with a pair of black boots. His hair had grown out over the years and was more wild and reached to his shoulders. Sakura was in a blue dress with a large cut up the left side revealing her long smooth leg. Her hair was done up in a ponytail letting her bangs fall down the side of her face. Ino was in the same dress and hairstyle, just her hair was longer and reached down to her waist. Miranda and Jacob had went back up to the ship and got some dress wear and came back down. Miranda gave Shepard a dress she wouldn't usually look twice at in a store but reluctantly agreed to wear it. It stopped just above her knees and was strapless with a light red in color. Miranda wore a similar dress which was black and had straps. Jacob wore a formal suit along with most other males that were in the room. Naruto had just entered and scanned the room and saw Tsunade beckoning him over to a poker table. He grinned slightly and went over and took up a seat next to her. "Where have you been?" Tsunade asked as the dealer handed out cards to the players. "Well, you know me, I like to disappear every now and then. Plus you told me to get exercise so Neji's nerve thingy would wear off." He smirked back at her. The dealer finished handing out the cards and the betting began. Everyone folded apart from the two blondes. Tsunade, the legendary sucker, and Naruto, the most unpredictable ninja. Everyone who was near came to watch the poker match and the stakes got higher and higher as more cards got turned over, but none were letting anything show on their faces. "Say Naruto, how about we make this interesting, Tsunade asked with an evil smirk. "Sure, Lady Hokage," he smirked back. "What are your stakes?" "If I win, you get to keep the pot and also you have to forgive Sakura." Naruto's grin disappeared and Tsunade thought she was about to win before his smirk came back to his old fox-like one. She has no idea, Naruto thought. Still the devious prankster, Naruto, said the fox. Gotta have some fun, fox, and this is it, Naruto told his Biju, then turned to Tsunade. Sure, if I win you get to keep the pot and you tell everyone my heritage. Naruto smirked evilly back making Tsunade falter. You know what they would do to you then Naruto. They wouldn't let you leave the village. Tsunade whispered to him. Then do it when I'm not here. He continued to smirk at her. Deal? Deal. Please show your cards. The dealer said gesturing to Tsunade. She nodded and flipped her hand and showed she had a 4 of a kind and she grinned like an idiot the only time she ever got lucky and this bet was as good as hers now. She looked to Naruto but couldn't see through his poker face. Sir your cards. Naruto nodded and flipped his cards, making Tsunade gasp. Straight flush. Looks like a win Lady Hokage. He smiled as he stood up and turned to come face to face with Sakura. Naruto. Tsunade growled at him. Where the hell did you learn to play poker? She continued as she stood up and stood between Sakura and the blonde. What do you think pervy sage only taught me some jutsu? He smiled. But he sucked at poker. She yelled at the blonde. He only sucked when he played with you hoping he could coax you into a game of strip poker. Naruto laughed as Tsunade blushed. So when I return home I hope I have heard about your little announcement grandma. He smirked as he made his way through the crowd to see Shepard grinning like an idiot at him. Miss, I don't know how to drive a shuttle. How may I help you this evening? He grinned at the commander. You cheated. She smirked. Do you have any proof of this Miss Shepard? He asked again not faltering at all. Oh no Mr. Uzumaki I would never be able to prove something as sinister as this. She continued to grin as she led him over to the bar arm in arm. She sat down on a stool and ordered a drink and he followed. So why don't you want to apologize to Sakura? Naruto gave her a slight smirk. I really don't want to get into it. Naruto replied as he took a drink of his beverage, at least not here. If you're going to be on my crew I have to know my team and I need to know what makes them tick. I might as well start with you. She smiled back to him. Well alright then, you know my name. I'm only 21, the last 2 years of my life I have been on the run from bounty hunters and hunter nens. He started. I was born an orphan, my mother died in childbirth, and my father died in a jutsu. Shepard and Miranda had learned a lot about what jutsu were as they had passed a few training fields in their days here and Sakura had explained it to them. So when I was 4 years old I was kicked out of the orphanage and had to defend myself for 5 years until I was 9 when the previous Hokage bought me my own apartment. It wasn't much but it was home. I was then entered in at the ninja academy. I didn't pass until I was 12 years old. When I did finally pass I learned why the village hates me so much. Why is that? I'm a Jinchuriki. Shepard raised an eyebrow at him and he continued. It means that I am a container for a demon. He said as he looked into his glass. There are 9 great demons in this land and their strength is determined by the number of how many tails they have. I have Kurama, the 9 tails. Shepard's eyes went wide as she realized that the villages looked down on him even though he probably has saved them dozens of times. So they hate you over something you can't control? Naruto nodded. My father the 4th Hokage sealed Kurama in me when I was born when he was attacking the village. Naruto sighed again. Funny thing is, Kurama was being controlled by the guy the first defeated in the war, Tobi. Dad thought he was some ancient Uchiha who died decades ago. But if your father was a Hokage shouldn't you have been treated differently? By rights yes, but they didn't know that's what Granny Tsunade's little announcement is going to be. He gave a small chuckle. As soon as I leave I won't be able to see their reactions as there is no possible way to determine whether or not we will survive the mission. He smiled while thinking about what their reactions would be. When I graduated I was put on a team with Sakura and Sasuke. Sasuke is the guy over there in the black suit and looks like he has a duck's ass on his head and Sakura is the pinkhead who rushed in on your first meeting with the Hokage. He said turning around in his chair and pointing at each. I meet Sakura. She let us know a few things about what chakra is and the use of it. She said with a small smile. When we first started out we were probably the worst team in teamwork and probably still are. Sakura was a fangirl. Sasuke was an avenger with a stick so far up his ass he could probably sprout leaves out the top of his head if he really tried. And you? I was head over heels for Sakura. I see. When Sasuke went rogue I was sent on the retrieval mission, but after that day I always knew that I would be second in Sakura's heart even if I was able to get her on one date or maybe start a relationship with her. Sasuke would always be her first where she would always be mine. So I stopped loving her the best I could. It was a hard decision, I take it? Naruto nodded. I guess I'll always have some sort of feelings for Sakura, but over the years, I guess they're just not as strong as they were back when I was a kid. During a battle against a really tough opponent, Pain, another girl, Hinata, who I had known as long as I had everyone else in my age group, told me she loved me. Hell of a thing to hear, right before she's slaughtered by the guy you're fighting. Thing is, I really don't have that strong of a feeling for her, either. Now, mind you, Nagato, Pain brought back everyone he killed during the invasion, so Hinata's alive. I just don't see her as she sees me. As for Sasuke and Sakura, I'll tell you later. It's a long story. I've made some hard decisions too. Naruto looked to her. 2 years ago I had a very delicate situation between two of my crew members. I could only save one of them. I would have to leave one of them behind to die on Vermeer. What happened? I had just left Cade in Elenco to arm the nuke, and was going to get Gunnery Chief Ashley Williams. When I got out of the elevator I saw a ship pass overhead and go straight for Elenco. Ashley told me to go back for him, but I went for her instead, hoping that there would be time. There wasn't, she said as tears threatened to fall down her cheeks. He was important to you? She nodded, not trusting her voice. I thought that I would be able to be with him after the mission was completely over and start a life outside the military. She said as she finished of her drink. But when life gives you lemons, you say fuck the lemons, I'm going home. Naruto chuckled. I was going to say you make lemonade or a lemon meringue pie, your choice, but your way seems more sufficient. She smiled. She rose from her chair and offered Naruto a small smile. Thanks for the talk, Naruto. If you ever need anything before we hit the Omega 4 relay, don't be hesitant, I will always go out of my way for a friend. Thanks, Jane. He replied with a small smile as she walked away. Anything else for you tonight, sir? The bartender asked. Another couple of these should be good. The bartender nodded and made the drinks and served them to him. Tsunade and Sakura had been talking for a while as they both watched Naruto take his drinks one at a time while he talked to the bartender and more drinks were put in front of him. Is he going to be okay, Lady Tsunade? Sakura asked. I'm not totally sure, Sakura. He has faced down everything Tobi and Akatsuki could throw at him. And he has probably come face to face with the Nine Tails on several occasions, so there's really no telling. Tsunade replied as she sat down at her table. Is it true that Jane and Miranda call his next mission a suicide mission? She asked while still looking towards the blonde man. Tsunade nodded her head sadly. Then why let him go? Sakura, you know as much as I do that if I didn't let him go on this mission he would find his own way. Plus I made him promise to me that he would come back alive. Sakura smiled at that. So he is still a man of honor then? A voice came from behind them to reveal Kakashi in a suit, still with his face mask on. Yes, Kakashi, he will still fulfill any promises that he makes. Tsunade replied with a smile. Kakashi-sensei, why not go talk with him? Sakura asked. I could ask you the same, Sakura. He sighed. I was never really a teacher to Naruto. He learned more from Jiraiya than he did from me. We were almost equals when he came back from his training trip. I taught him tree climbing and what his elemental chakra was, he did the rest, and still he is probably the most powerful person in the elemental nations. He doesn't hate us, though, sensei, Sakura stated. You know he has never been able to hold a grudge. When we met Sasuke for the first time, after he came back, he asked Sasuke how he could become Hokage, if he couldn't save one friend. Then you remember what happened when he saved both of us from Sasuke, before the war. That wasn't the acts of a man with a grudge. It was the actions of a man who hadn't given up hope for his friend. That brat, Tsunade thought. He didn't tell me that during the game. Ino looked over to the three from the other table and saw that Naruto was on his umpteenth drink and was all giddy. He was flirting with the female bartender who had taken over for the previous one after his shift had finished, and she had a large blush covering her face as he made comments on how she looked. What happened to you, Naruto? I never knew you to drink like that. Ino thought to herself as she watched the blonde. Ino, are you alright? Shikamaru asked from her side. Yeah, I am fine, Shikamaru, I just need some air. Shikamaru nodded and followed the blonde outside as he needed a smoke. Naruto was drunk, not completely smashed but getting there. He had always loved that he could get drunk and not feel the after effects the next day because of the 9 tails. He always heard the fox growling the next morning and always thought if he went to go see him there would be a large oversized bucket inside the cage as he watched the demon throw up. He chuckled at the thought and continued flirting until he got a tap on his shoulder. Naruto looked back over his shoulder and saw Sasuke standing there. His suit had the Uchiha crest on the left side of the chest. "Can I help you with something?" Naruto replied, slightly sluggish. "Naruto, I think you have had enough." Sasuke replied as he gripped the blonde's shoulder tighter. "Leave the bartender alone and go home for the night." The bartender looked to Sasuke with a frown on her face. She was actually enjoying his company and he would even let her go when she had a customer to serve, but she always made her way back to the blonde. "He has a point, kid. Every time you start drinking, I pay for it in the morning," the fox slurred. "Whoa," Naruto said with slurred speech, stereo. "You both have a point, plus, I'm leaving in the morning. Having a hangover when going off-world can't be good. We'll help you get home," Sasuke told the blonde. "What are friends for, right? Choji, a hand please?" The heavy-set Akamichi came over and helped Sasuke walk Naruto back home. "I guess you're right," Tsunade said to Sakura, "he really doesn't hold a grudge." Shepard, Miranda and Jacob stood at the shuttle at the gate of the village waiting for their new team member. Tsunade along with Shizune, Sakura and Sasuke stood at the gates and were waiting for the blonde. It had been about an hour of waiting when Kakashi arrived. "Yo, you're late," Tsunade growled. "Well, you see, I thought I left the oven on, so I had to go back and make sure it was turned off. Didn't want to burn the house down," he said with an eye smile, making the Leaf villagers' sweat drop at his new excuse. "We wouldn't want that now, would we, Kakashi? I mean, if the house burns down then the village would be at risk, am I right?" Naruto said as he appeared behind Kakashi back to back. Yeah, exactly, Naruto," Kakashi said, not used to people agreeing with him. "Well, let's go," Naruto said with a smile as he stood with the 3 near the shuttle. "Be careful, Naruto," Kakashi said as he raised his hand in a departing gesture. "Yeah, Naruto, and remember your promise." Tsunade smiled at him as she hugged the younger blonde. "Don't forget the announcement, Granny Tsunade," Naruto replied as he watched the older blonde twitch in his arms. "If I have to come find you like I did when you tried to escape the hospital, I won't be happy," Shizune said as she hugged her surrogate brother. "Trust me, Shizune, you won't have to," he said, pulling back from the hug and smiling at her. "Naruto," Sakura started, "please be safe out there. I won't be there to heal you up like previous times." She chuckled a little. "I mean, don't be reckless, okay?" She went to hug him and hesitated, but her eyes opened wide when he hugged her and tears fell from her eyes. "I'll try not to be, Sakura," he whispered in her ear. She nodded and had to wipe her cheeks as they were stained with tears. "Dobi," Sasuke started as he approached. "Teme," Naruto replied as he stood there. "I guess I'll see you around," he said as he offered his hand. Sasuke looked at him before smiling and braced his arm with Naruto's. "Don't do anything I wouldn't do out there, and try and make a good first impression, would ya?" He smiled. Naruto entered the shuttle after Jacob and sat down and watched as the door closed, hiding the faces of the group outside. "What's with the change of heart, Naruto?" Shepard asked. "A few long talks with old friends, and a lot of thought," Naruto replied. Flashback. Naruto had left with Sasuke. After a few short hours' rest, he was feeling a lot better, so he went where he usually did when he had something on his mind. He had just got to the top of the Hokage monument and sat down on the 4th's head. "Yo, Naruto," Kakashi's voice came from behind him. "Kakashi-sensei," Naruto replied. "You already forgave Sasuke and Sakura?" Kakashi said as he sat down behind him, his back up against the blonde's. "Yeah," Naruto said. "Jiraiya always said he wanted to do something about all the hatred, and I can't follow his example, if I have that same hatred in my heart. I had to confront all of it when I started training to master Kurama's power. Your father was my sensei, Naruto. I still can't believe I didn't see it in you when I became yours. Jiraiya taught you well. Just promise me, whatever you choose to do, you'll at least survive this mission." "You know I can't guarantee that, sensei. This mission is so unlike," Naruto said as he stood up. "I want you to promise me, Naruto, say the words," Kakashi said as he stood up and looked over the village. "I promise you, Kakashi, that I will do all I can to survive this mission," he said as he dived off the edge of the Hokage monument. Kakashi went wide-eyed and peered over the edge to see him land gracefully on his feet. Show off. Kakashi smiled as he disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Flashback end. Shepard nodded and told Jacob to take off. You should hold on Naruto since this is your first time, it's going to be too awkward. Shepard smiled at him. There was an agreement from Jacob and the shuttle jolted upwards and Naruto hit the floor from where he was sitting as he was forced down to the floor from his seat. What the hell was that? Naruto asked. I told you to hang on. Shepard laughed at him. Naruto stood up and sat back in his seat and held onto the grip above his head with one hand and did the most stupidest thing. He looked out the window. They had already traveled over the tree line and were in the clouds, and he started to panic even more when he felt a hand on his shoulder. It's okay Naruto, just take a deep breath. Shepard said, reassuring him. The outside went black as they left the planet's atmosphere and headed for the Normandy. Naruto reluctantly looked out the window again and smiled. He could see the stars. I was just thinking before you almost hit me what it would be like to fly among the stars. He smiled. Well, Jacob, bring us into the Normandy. Miranda said, and they entered the docking bay and landed with another jolt. Does it always do that? Naruto asked as he stood from the floor of the shuttle. Afraid so, you will get used to it. Or we could install seatbelts. Shepard growled at her as she had the same thing happen to her when they first landed on Naruto's planet. Welcome back, Commander. A voice came over the radio. Who's that? Naruto asked. That's the AI. It helps Joker run the ship. Shepard said as the shuttle door opened and she stepped out. I don't need this thing telling me how to do my job, Commander. And that's Joker. I will take you up to meet him after we figure out where your place will be on the ship. Shepard told him. Commander, I heard the conversation just before docking. I think it would be best if he was put into an observation room on the crew deck. Eddie said over the radio. Good thinking, computer. Shepard smirked. My name is Eddie, not computer. Yeah, right that. Joker's laugh could be heard from the bridge. Miranda and Jacob headed for the elevator as Naruto looked around the hangar where they had landed. This is a ship? He asked. Yeah, our previous one got destroyed and I got spaced. Shepard said as she leaned up against the shuttle. Spaced? Naruto asked her. Yeah, I actually died. When the ship blew up, one of the air hoses on the back of my helmet got cut and I floated to a planet below and got cut up pretty bad. Miranda and Jacob's boss patched me back together. It took 2 years. Why, you're a ghost. Naruto yelled at her as he hid behind a crate of some sort. I'm not a ghost. Shepard yelled at him as she threw her helmet at him, which he caught. I'm alive, they brought me back to life. So you're a zombie? Yes, I am a zombie and want to eat your brain, SSS. She said as she put her arms out in front of her and stiffened her legs as she walked towards him, making him go pale. No, I am not a zombie, but the look on your face was priceless. She laughed. Jerk. He mumbled under his breath, making her chuckle. Of course, Shepard wasn't the only one laughing. I like her, kid, Kurama stated. She's got a great sense of humor. This is the engineering deck where Miranda and Jacob went before. We'll let you change floors. I know what an elevator is. He argued. There are 4 decks on the ship, this one being the lowest, then the crew deck where the observation rooms are probably where you will be, the command deck, and then my personal quarters. By no means are you to enter those quarters unless I invite you up. She winked at him. I got it, he replied as they both headed for the elevator. The doors opened on the crew deck and they both stepped out. How many people are on this thing? He asked as he took a glance through the opening between the elevator and the port observation room. Maybe 30-50. Shepard replied as they headed into the observation room. There was a bar to the right side of the room while the left had shelves. In the center of the wall of the outside opposite there was a large glass window. Naruto walked up to it and peered out. So there is no air out there? Shepard nodded. How can something so beautiful be so deadly? But I guess you have to look under the underneath. He smiled as he remembered Kakashi's teachings. If you're hungry, ask the cook, he is on this deck. I'll try and head for the Citadel as soon as possible for some better ingredients. Like he asked, if you need anything just ask someone. I'm usually down here anyways, but if I'm not, head up to the command deck and talk to Joker if you would like. I think I'll stay in here for a little while and get set up. Shepard nodded and left Naruto to his own devices and used the elevator and headed to the command deck. Hello, Commander, you received a few emails while you were down on the planet. I would like to meet this Naruto, he seems very pleasant. Kelly said as she saw Shepard smiling. I can't remember the last time someone made me laugh as much as he does. She smiled as she went to her computer and looked through her messages. One about a mercenary and another about a thief. I will have to talk to him. I was not given a dossier on him. She said, smiling. Even if you were given a dossier, what he does wouldn't even fit on a datapad. Which reminds me, would you be able to teach him a few things about the galaxy which he might need to know? Yes, of course, Commander. I'll get some datapads down to him right away and try and transfer them to his language. Shepard nodded and went back to the elevator. Well, alright then, I'm going to hit the sack for the night. Kelly nodded and went back to her own computer. Naruto had brought out his scroll with everything that he had sealed within it, kunai, shuriken, and some explosive tags. He had no idea what the hell he should bring, as he knew nothing of what he was fighting or what would even hurt them. He didn't even know if the armor that Shepard said would allow him to use his chakra properly. He sighed as he sat down in front of the window that showed the endless space. He had been on the ship a whole hour and had unpacked all of his clothes and headed for the door when it opened and showed a woman around his age with sandy brown hair. Hi, Naruto said as she blushed. Hi, I'm Kelly Chambers, you can just call me Kelly. She said. Naruto Uzumaki, or Namikaze. Take your pick, he greeted. That's quite a name. She smiled at him. Thanks, can I help you with something? He asked, trying not to be rude. The commander asked me to bring you down a few datapads so you could learn a few things about how things work out in the galaxy. Awesome, so what do I need to learn first? He asked as he walked back into his room and sat down cross-legged, and she followed him and put the datapads down in front of them. First, I need you to speak into this without the headset on so that the datapad can get a fix on your language and change the words so you can read it. Well, alright then. He took the headset of as instructed and spoke a few words, and the datapad beeped a few times before the words changed. Can you read that? Kelly asked, and Naruto nodded after putting his headset back on. Alright, I'll let you read those and I will come down later to hand some more to you. Naruto started reading and Kelly exited the room, hoping that it would be a few hours before he finished reading the datapad, as she had made a complete and utter embarrassment of herself. She heard what sounded like a puff sound from behind her but ignored it and went to the elevator. The elevator doors opened behind her 20 minutes later, and Naruto came out with the 6 datapads in his hands. Ah, Kelly, I'm done, he said while rubbing the back of his head. Already? She almost yelled at him, mostly because of the shock of him being right behind her. Well, you see, I have this technique that helps me learn things faster than others. He smiled. So you might as well get me the rest of those datapads so I can finish them up. Kelly nodded and grabbed the datapads that she had set aside on her desk and handed them to him. They both entered the elevator and went back down to the crew deck, and Naruto went back to where he had set up and Kelly went back to get the datapads that she had received. When she went back into Naruto's quarters, she dropped all the datapads, which made all the Narutos in the room turn to look at her. Hey Kelly, they all said in unison. In Naruto's mind, the fox couldn't stop laughing at the look on Kelly's face. Naru, too. The look on her face. Priceless, the Biju said between fits of laughter and trying to catch his breath. Naruto? Yeah, I'm over here, Naruto said from the left side of the room. How are all of these you? It's a technique people use on my world. Some don't have the extent to use it like I do, as this type is forbidden, but I can use it without any risk. Everything they learn, I learn. He smiled as he helped pick up the datapads. Amazing, she said. Really? I just thought it as a good distraction in a fight. He smiled. She left him with the datapads and left him to his learning. Naruto finished all 32 datapads an hour and a half later, and when he found out about the other species in the galaxy, he was slightly worried at how they would look and how they would react. He had seen some pretty bad stuff when he finished of Kabuto when he brought back the dead, but these species would be heavily armed and would have backup. Unlike Kabuto. He searched through his clone's memories as he looked out into the emptiness of space once more and came across the weapons and frowned. The only weapons that would even cause damage was the explosive tags. He decided to keep the kunai and shuriken anyways, just in case. He didn't understand most of the stuff around the technology department and figured biotics were a lot like chakra. He laid down on one of the leather couches in the room and fell asleep, wondering if it was day or night. He truly didn't know. It was only Naruto's 3rd night on the ship and he was already feeling rebellious. He wanted to explore Shepard's quarters mostly, and find out what was in the AI core in the medical lab, but that was securely locked and there was no lock to pick. Apparently they were heading to some place called Omega to find Archangel, Morden Solis and Zaid Masani. He was told that when they went to get the prospective people that he would have to stay on the ship as he might cause too much attention. Shepard had told him he was too loud even for Omega. He scolded at her, making her laugh at him even more. He was currently sitting in his room looking over the guns that he had been given: AM-3 Predator heavy pistol and AM-92 Mantis sniper rifle. He hadn't really wanted to use a weapon like this as they were very long-ranged, but Shepard and even went as far as ordering him to do so as it would save his life in the missions to come, and Naruto wasn't one to disobey orders. He sighed as he read over the dossier for the mercenary and the thief. He wanted to meet this elusive man also, and Shepard and told him not yet. If anything, she was way too overprotective over him and was only 4 years older, making her 25. He sighed again as he read up on Kasumi Goto. She was apparently a bit like him in the stealth department but had technology to help her where he didn't. He had been given his own armor as well, but he had even painted it himself. Where it started off plain white, he painted it black and placed the Akatsuki clouds on it in random places. It was truly unique. He looked over to the digital clock that showed that it was close to midnight, far as he could tell it was always midnight being so dark outside. He rose from where he was seated on the floor and headed for the door to go to the mess to get something to eat. The lights were dimmed down low so you could get the feeling that you should be asleep, and he had a feeling that if he was caught he would be in a lot of trouble, but shook it off as nothing. He headed for where Rupert would usually be standing during the day. He was always cheerful, and what he made with the rations that he had was better than nothing. He opened up a fridge that was under the bench and pulled out a packet of what he could tell was instant noodles and looked around for something to boil some water in when he saw what looked like to be a jug. He looked at it puzzled before he got up real close to it, trying to figure out how it worked. When he went to push one of the 4 buttons on it, a black gloved hand pressed a button and a red light came on. "Still not used to it?" Miranda asked. Naruto looked up to her and rubbed the back of his head as he stood up straight. "Nah, not yet. Usually Rupert offers to do it for me." He smiled. Miranda nodded and came around and stood beside him and pulled out a cup as she started to make a cup of coffee. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked as she looked over to him. "Just thinking over a few things. It's been a hectic week." Miranda nodded. "So what does a Solarian look like?" Miranda looked to him and smiled. "You will find out when we bring Morden on board," she teased. "Oh come on, not even a clue?" He pouted at her. "Sorry Naruto, commander's orders." She laughed. Then the jug boiled and made a beeping sound, and Miranda picked it up and poured it into her cup and handed it to Naruto, and he poured it into his cup of noodles. Miranda walked over to the other seat across from where Naruto was standing and sat down. "So what's your story?" Naruto asked, shocking her. "Me?" Naruto nodded. "There is no story really," she said with a small frown and looked into her cup of coffee. "So would you come out here at midnight every night, not looking like you have had a break all day every night?" he asked her. "I have reports to do," she argued. "And I have things to learn, so why not tell me about these reports? They go straight to the elusive man," she said, taking a sip of coffee. "Do I get to meet him soon? Because if he brought Shepard back from the dead, I have a few questions to ask him." "I don't think that would be wise, Naruto. The elusive man is very independent. Shepard has seen him more than most. I have only met him in person a few times, and some never even hear a word from him." "Why is that? I mean, he helps out so much yet still hides his face. Don't you think that's a bit shady?" he said before shoveling noodles into his mouth. "It's complicated. Anyway, I have to go finish my reports, Naruto. You should head to bed." She smiled as she grabbed her cup and walked off to her room. Naruto watched her as she walked away and noticed that after a few strides that she had more of a sway in her hips, and smirked. He finished his noodles and started to head back to his room when he felt like exploring instead of sleeping, and headed for the elevator and hit the button for Shepard's private quarters and grinned to himself. The door swiped open and he went in and saw that Shepard was asleep on her bed, her blankets covering most of her body, one foot sticking out and an arm was behind her head. He looked to her desk and found what he was searching for and went to work before he went back down to the crew's quarters and went back to his room, trying not to laugh. Naruto awoke before anyone else and headed for the mess hall where he and Miranda had been last night, and made himself a coffee before sitting down where Miranda had been sitting last night. After about 15 minutes, people started to come in and make coffee or get something to eat before going to their stations. It was a full hour before everyone on the ship heard a scream of rage. Shepard was awake. The elevator door hissed open and Shepard came storming out. She hadn't even got dressed. still in a pair of pink boxer shorts with a heart on them and a white singlet, and her face was covered in water and what looked to be black smudge marks. "Naruto!" she screamed as she turned around the corner and headed straight forward to the blonde. "Yes?" he calmly replied. "I'm going to kill you." Through the smudge marks on her face you could just see the words on her forehead that had been tried to be washed away. Naruto was here. Naruto stood up from his chair, grinned and disappeared in a swirl of leaves, and his laughter could be heard through the ship as he had done so, and somehow he had managed to pull down Shepard's boxers, revealing a black thong. "Naruto!" she screamed as she pulled up her boxers with a blush on her cheeks. She just thought that she was lucky as there was only 2 female crew members to see it. Meanwhile, Naruto and Kurama were both having a good laugh. It was 3 hours later that we find Naruto in a headlock on the floor of the command deck from Shepard giving him a mega noogie. Kelly watched in amusement as she had been one of the women to see the earlier display. "Come on Jane, it was a joke," Naruto yelled as she continued the noogie. "Yeah well, last time I checked, making me flash my underwear in the crew quarters wasn't so funny," she growled at him as she sat on his butt stopping the noogie. "I found it funny," he mumbled. "What was that?" she said as she started the procedure for another noogie. "Nothing, I'm sorry," he yelled. "Good," she growled at him standing up. "Joker, how far are we out from Omega?" "About a day, Commander," Joker said over the speaker system. "Alright Naruto, for the rest of the day you are not to leave your quarters." "What?" he shouted as he jumped up. "It's punishment, Naruto." "What, am I a child?" he growled. "From that little stunt this morning you're going to act like a child, you will be treated like one." "Come on Jane, it was just a joke. It's boring be cooped up in there all day." He pouted and making a puppy dog face at her. She twitched before she looked away. "Fine," she mumbled, "but you better not pull any more pranks," she growled. "Aye, Commander." He saluted with a shit-eating grin. "How did you get into my room anyway?" she asked curiously. "Now that would be telling, wouldn't it?" He smiled as he walked up to the bridge to talk with Joker. "Jerk," she shouted at him. "Love you too," he shouted back. The crew members on the command deck were all speechless at how relaxed they were, even though they both knew what the mission ahead would be like. Naruto sat next to Joker's leather seat and had been listening to Joker and Eddie argue about personal space and what he could have on the bridge with him. "What about something to cover up our cameras?" Naruto asked. "Great idea Naruto, I'll get some grease up here, then every time she looks at me it will be in a dream sequence." Joker laughed. "So Naruto, what's your planet like?" "Well, considering that I haven't been to any other planets I wouldn't know how to let you know if it was good or not," Naruto replied. "Yeah, I guess that's true," he said as he looked over to the blonde. "I heard about what you did to the commander. I never thought someone would be brave enough to do that to her." He grinned. "She had it coming, but that noogie was not worth it," he said as he rubbed the spot where Shepard's knuckles had been. "I haven't seen her this happy in 2 long years. I'm glad that she is truly smiling again." "Yeah, I remember Kelly telling me that you used to be a part of the old Normandy crew." Joker nodded. "What was the team like back then?" "It would seem like we were unstoppable until we lost Caden. We almost lost our Krogan too, but Shepard managed to bring him around. Talai and Garrus were always fun to talk to when they came to talk with me. Talai was a bit shy, but I think that all Quarians might be. Garrus needed to work that stick out of his ass a little bit, but Ashley was a little strict and didn't like aliens all that much, but was fun to be around," Joker said. "Then there was Liara. She was definitely a weird one. She always stole glances at Caden and Shepard, but I don't think either of them noticed." "She was an Asari, right?" Naruto asked. "Yeah, I don't get them, they only have the gender of females. I don't think I could even live in a society like that. Once you're a man you need to have that dignity that we all have." Naruto nodded his head in agreement. "Well, I guess I'll go see if Jane has calmed down a bit. I'll be back later for you to show me how to fly this thing." Naruto smirked and Joker nodded his head. Naruto walked down the walkway of the bridge and found Kelly talking with Jacob. "Kelly, where is Jane?" he asked. "She went down to talk with Miranda." Kelly smiled at him. He nodded and headed for the elevator. The doors opened and Naruto walked out of them and headed for Miranda's quarters and wondered if it was such a good idea for him to speak to Jane. She may still be angry. He headed forward anyway and stopped outside Miranda's door and waited while he picked up their conversation. "Dot, are you telling me to back off?" Miranda's voice came out harshly. "For one, I haven't even made any speculation of even wanting to be with him. Are they seriously fighting over some guy? And she called me childish." Naruto thought. I never said you did. Shepard said back. Then why the hell are you in here? To tell you, even if you had any speculation of being with him, is that you would have competition. The door hissed open, revealing a smirking Shepard, which instantly dropped as she saw Naruto. Boy troubles. He grinned. What the hell were you doing eavesdropping? She growled. Hey, I didn't mean to. I was just standing out here waiting for you to finish with Miranda. You are the two who were shouting in there. He replied as he pushed himself off the wall. You were waiting? Yeah, you told me that you were going to show me how to shoot a gun today, so let's go. He smiled as Shepard turned around and smirked at the seething Miranda after hearing their conversation. Naruto headed off and headed for the elevator and waited for Shepard, who arrived just after him, and they went down to the engineering deck. They walked to the training area on the ship and Shepard pulled out her pistol and handed it to Naruto. Alright, see those targets? Naruto nodded as he saw the moving targets. Pull the trigger and hit the targets. Naruto nodded again and held the pistol up with two hands and looked to Shepard, who nodded, and he lined up his shot and fired. Shepard had to gasp as it was a bullseye on the first shot. So how did I do? Naruto asked as he loaded the gun. Fluke, do it again, Shepard said and looked to the grinning Naruto, who aimed up his shot and sent off more than one, and she had to look towards the targets and saw that two had bullseyes and one had just off by a few centimeters. Okay, so it wasn't a fluke. I thought you said you didn't know how to shoot a gun? I just have a really good perspective. He smiled at her. So tell me, who was this guy you and Miranda were arguing about? He said as he sat on a crate and Shepard stood where he was and lined up her shot with her pistol. He's no one, she said as she fired and just barely hit the target and hit another one just below the bullseye and another dead on. It didn't sound like no one, so tell me, is it Jacob? He asked. Shepard looked to him and smirked. Why so curious, Naruto? Jealous? She smiled as she walked over to him. Why would I be jealous? Naruto asked. Oh, I don't know, maybe you have a thing for Miranda? She smirked at him. Nah, she may be good looking, but I don't know her all that well. I like to get to know someone before I jump into bed with them. He replied back. Really? She asked, and he just nodded his head as he took the pistol from her and lined up his shot. So who is he? Naruto asked as he put a thermal clip into the pistol and relined up his shot, while Jane leaned over and whispered in his ear. What if I said that it was you? Bang! The bullet went straight past the target and hit a metal crate. Why would you be arguing about me? He asked as he turned around to see her blushing a little bit. Shepard stood up and headed for the elevator. I'm going to go and get something to eat, I'll talk to you later, she said as she walked away. What the hell? He asks me a simple question and I get all flustered. I faced down what most wouldn't even dream of facing. I faced down Sovereign and told it that it was only a machine and could be made as scrap, and then faced off with Saren. I even looked Death in the face and I can't even tell him what he means to me. I should be able to handle this, she screamed to herself in her head. But is it too soon? She finished as she stood in the elevator and watched as he fired more rounds into the targets, never faltering, and she thought that she could see him blushing a little. Shepard, Miranda and Jacob had all left the Normandy after they had docked on Omega. Naruto wanted to get out and explore the space station but was told to stay on the ship. He knew that Shepard was right in this, but he was just too anxious to get out there. Oi Joker, do you reckon she would be pissed if I took a little excursion on my own? He asked. Mr. Namikaze, I would suggest that you do not question the commander's orders. Edie's voice came back to him. He wasn't talking to you. Joker growled at the AI. But it has a point, Naruto, she would be pissed if you left the ship. But I just want to get out of here. He growled. Like, come on, even you get to leave the ship from time to time, right? He yelled. Yeah, I guess I do. Joker replied. That's it, I'll be back in an hour. If she comes back, tell her I will take full responsibility for it all. Joker nodded and Naruto went to get his armor and weapons. He headed for the entrance of the ship and was stopped by the annoying blue ball. I must insist, Mr. Namikaze. And I must get out of this ship, he replied as he walked past it, and the door opened and he looked out only to see that the lights were a dimmed red and the walls looked old and rusty. This is going to be awesome, he said to himself as he walked past a Batarian who growled at him and kept walking past. He looked back to the alien and smirked. Should be interesting, at least, Kurama said back to the blonde shinobi. Beats being stuck on the ship all the time. Hey you. He heard a voice called to him as he opened a door and saw a line of people. Oi. The voice came again and Naruto turned around and saw that a human was calling him over. You're new here, aren't you? Yeah, what's it you? Naruto asked, then thought, who's this? He kinda makes Konohamaru look like Pain. Had to agree, kid, the fox thought back, he's not that intimidating. I think you and I should be partner. I mean, we're both new here, obviously both humans, we should help each other out. He said, and who exactly are you? Name's Fist, I just got here last month and have been looking for a decent business partner / bodyguard. You look like you would be good for both. He smiled. What type of name is Fist? Naruto asked, and all he did was sweat drop. What is this kid, an idiot? Fist looked at him and smiled. I think we would get along great, kid. What's your name? Naruto, and sorry but I have a very important mission to complete. So I can't take your offer. Naruto said as he started to walk away. He heard a gun being loaded behind him and turned and pulled the weapon out of Fist's hands and aimed it at his head. Hey whoa, I was just kidding, come on. Fist said as he dropped to his knees. I'm keeping this, you better not come near this place or near me again or I'll use it, you hear me? Fist nodded and Naruto placed Fist's weapon on his opposite hip of the other pistol and walked away and headed for the line to what looked like a club with the sign for Afterlife above it. You there? A voice came from his left and he saw a Batarian with an assault rifle. I like the way you handled Fist, you can go straight in, he has been a pain in my ass for the last couple of weeks, I really appreciate the help with that. Thanks. Naruto replied and walked into the club and was surrounded by screens with flames. The doors on the opposite side of the hallway opened and he could hear music or what sounded like music and went through and his eyes opened wide. There was a large pillar in the middle of the room with a screen that went all the way around it with a dancing blue woman on it in a very revealing outfit. There was a railing around it with more of the blue woman with the same outfits dancing. Whoa, Naruto was speechless. Now this is what I call a target-rich environment. Not now, Fox. Nice how you should check the VIP lounge, it's bigger and better. The alien behind the bar said he had a long neck and two horned-like tentacles out the top of his head that angled inwards and were different sizes. Can I get you anything? He asked as Naruto walked up to him. I was looking for some information. Naruto said, you should go talk with Arya, she might be able to help you. Naruto nodded and the Solarian directed him towards the back and he could see the guard at the stairs. He walked over to him and the guard just grunted at him. Alright, I was told to come see Arya about some information. The guard gestured with his gun up the stairs and Naruto obliged and went up the stairs and four more Batarians pointed their weapons at him. He raised his hand up in a defensive motion. Who are you? Asked the Asari. My name is Naruto, I was looking for some information on someone known as Archangel. Why is everyone asking about him today? Let me guess you want to know about Morden too. Arya asked. No, I believe the commander is getting him. Naruto smiled. Mind if I sit? Go for your life. Arya smiled at him. So you're on Commander Shepard's team then? Naruto nodded. I should have guessed as soon as I saw you walk into the club. She came in heavily armed with two others. That would be her. Naruto smiled. When they first entered, the two women were arguing about something before they came up to talk to me. So you must be Arya, the one the bartender told me to see. Arya nodded. Do you have information on Archangel? Yes, I do. There are 3 mercenary bands after him and you could join as a freelancer to get him. Good a way as any to get in. Out is another thing altogether. Where is the recruiting station? Downstairs to your left. Thanks for the information. He thanked her and stood up from the couch. Just remember that when I need something from you. Arya smirked at him. And I always need something. Ah yeah, I'll help out any way that I can. Naruto replied as he stood up and headed for the stairs. What's your name? Arya asked him. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto replied as he walked down the stairs and headed for the mercenary recruiting station. Ah, is this the place to go after Archangel? Yeah, it is. You look like you could pack a punch. You have your own weapons and armor, which is good. You get your pay after the job is done. No one collects your cut if you die. This does not mean you are a part of the Bloodbath, Eclipse or the Blue Suns. Head on up to the transit station and talk with the Batarian driver. Well, alrighty then. Naruto smiled as he turned around and bumped into someone that looked younger than he did. Is this the place to sign up for the mercenary mission? How old are you, kid? Naruto asked. Old enough. I just picked up this pistol for 50 credits and want to try it out. He replied. Naruto snatched the gun away from him and aimed it at his head. I may not know all that much, but 50 credits doesn't sound like a lot. He pulled the trigger only for the gun to short out and start smoking. The kid ran out of the room and Naruto headed for the transit station, where he talked with the Batarian and smiled as he got into the car. "Can I drive?" "No," was the Batarian's reply as he took off. The car sped off and Naruto held on this time as he didn't want to end up on the floor of the car. The car stopped a short while later and Naruto asked the driver what the time was. He had already been off the ship for 45 minutes. "Guess I'll be off the ship for more than an hour." He grinned as he listened to the Batarian tell him to go up and see Sergeant Kathka. Naruto walked up the stairs and headed through the door to come face to face with the Eclipse leader, who looked pissed off and was mumbling something about good-for-nothing freelancers. He continued on and found what looked like a giant robot with a computer terminal. He walked over to the terminal and decided what the hell and pressed a bunch of random buttons. There was some beeping and then a warning sign, but ignored it and went and searched for the sergeant. He walked across a walkway and saw a merc get taken down and he smiled. "This is going to be fun." He walked over to a gunship and asked one of the mercs if they were Sergeant Kathka. They shook their heads no and pointed behind them to show a Batarian with a welder in his hands. He walked over to a crate and put the welder down and grabbed a cigarette and walked back over to Naruto. "You're the new recruit then?" he asked. "I take it you're Sergeant Kathka?" The Batarian nodded as he took a draw of his cigarette and blew it in Naruto's face. Naruto waved his hand around. "Are you leading the assault?" "Ha ha, yeah right. That's what you freelancers are for." He laughed as a voice came over his radio. "Time to move out. Where did I put that?" he asked himself as he bent over to the gunship. Naruto looked over to the welder and smirked. "You're working too hard," Naruto said as he placed the wielder on the back of Kathka's armor, sending a jolt through his system, killing him. Naruto walked over to where all the freelancers were and joined them. "Good shot, kid," Kurama stated, "one less to worry about on the way out." "Let's do this," one said. "I don't think they're going to like me after this." Naruto smirked as he jumped over the railing and headed straight for the base. Several sniper rounds landed near him, but he easily maneuvered around them, letting them hit the others. A few freelancers were before him. He drew his pistol and aimed for the first one and took him down with a well-placed headshot. As the freelancer fell to the ground, the other looked at him and opened fire on the blonde. Didn't think this would happen, he thought as he took cover and the bullets rained overhead. He peered around the corner from his cover and pulled his new pistol out that he got from Fist. That guy had good taste in weapons at least. He shot two of the freelancers and jumped up to the second floor, shocking everyone on the first. One of them was trying to break into the top room and he fired a single shot, killing the man, but not before the door opened. He pulled out his sniper rifle and finished off the remaining three on the first floor. He pulled out his pistol and looked into the room, and saw an alien in blue armor with a helmet on. He let off a shot and Naruto could see a freelancer fall to the ground. The alien looked towards him and aimed his rifle at him, and Naruto raised his weapon in return. "Hey, wait a minute," Naruto yelled at him. The alien looked at him and took off his helmet. He had a blue-eye targeting system over his right eye and was obviously a Turian. "I'm looking to recruit you, not kill you. What merc group are you with?" he replied harshly. "I'm not in a merc group. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Shepard wants you on her crew," Naruto said, hoping to convince him. "Shepard? Commander Shepard?" Naruto nodded. "She's dead," he replied. "Yeah, I heard about that, but some group calling themselves Cerberus brought her back." There was gunfire down below and Garrus let his guard down for a second and looked down. To his shock, there was Shepard herself. "It's Shepard." Naruto went to shock and ran to the side and looked down. "Crap, she is going to kill me," he screamed as he started to panic. "I thought you were a part of her crew," he shouted back. "I am, I just wasn't meant to leave the ship," he said as he sounded scared. "I had to put up with her mega noogie yesterday." He chuckled at that but gave Shepard some help and shot a mech who was coming up behind her. Shepard looked up and to her shock saw Garrus. She ran inside, leaving Miranda and Jacob to look after the remaining mechs, and ran up the stairs where she saw Naruto's failed attempt at hiding himself. "Garrus, what are you doing here?" she asked as he smiled at her. "Well, just getting to know your new teammate at the moment. I hear you gave him a noogie." He grinned. "Naruto, what did I say about staying on the ship?" She growled. "It's boring on the ship all the time." He argued with her. Miranda and Jacob came up the stairs to find Naruto and Shepard arguing. "When did he get here?" Jacob asked, and Miranda just shrugged her shoulders. Guys, I don't mean to sound like a wimp, but we have 3 groups of mercs coming for us. And both of your little displays probably gave them something to argue about and probably ticked some of the big boys off. Garrus said as everyone turned to him. He's right, Miranda agreed. There was a loud bang downstairs and everyone turned. What the hell was that? Jacob asked. They had to use their brains eventually. Garrus replied. He looked over his shoulder to see Eclipse mercs coming over the bridge. We're going to need to go into teams of 2. I'll stay up here, Garrus suggested. Alright, I'll take Miranda and Jacob with me. Naruto, you stay up here and help Garrus out, okay? Naruto nodded with a smirk and pulled out his sniper rifle. Well Garrus, let's get to work, shall we? Naruto suggested and got a smirk from Garrus. It's fun being on Omega and all, but fighting the Reapers again should be fun, even though I can't just point and shoot off Omega. He laughed and Shepard shook her head and left down the stairway. Garrus took down a few mechs as they came and Naruto did the same, both not talking but would give the other a grin when they made a decent shot. Garrus was directing Shepard where to go as Naruto took out a few more mechs and came a few Solarians. So the Eclipse are finally coming out. Garrus smirked. Shepard, there is only one more door to go. Ah Garrus, what's that big square robot thing? Naruto asked. Crap, it's a heavy mech, aim for its head. Garrus replied as he started on the Eclipse members. Naruto nodded and shot it a few times before it unfolded while it was still in the air and its shields became visible. Take this, Archangel, the head of the Eclipse shouted out. The mech started to unfold and stood up straight and looked around and saw the Eclipse members and immediately started firing. So that's what the warning was for, Naruto said as he watched the massacre. Warning? Garrus asked. Yeah, I found a little computer thing and started to press buttons, then a warning thing came up. Naruto replied as Garrus' sweat dropped. I don't know if you're stupid or just completely naive, but you just saved our asses. More like a fox's luck. In the middle of a firefight, Kurama. That's me, Naruto replied with a smile on his face as he started to attack the Eclipse mercenaries. There was a loud bang after the Eclipse mercenaries had stopped coming and Garrus ran down to the other balcony and looked down to see a group of Krogan and Vorcha came through the bottom door. There was a loud explosion and Garrus turned back to see Naruto with a smug look on his face rubbing the back of his head. Sorry, couldn't resist. As he finished, the heavy mech's head landed between them and Garrus smirked as Naruto laughed. We got Krogan downstairs, do you have an assault rifle? Garrus asked. Ah no, just these 2 pistols and sniper rifle. Garrus chucked him an assault rifle and Naruto handled it before grinning. I think we are going to get along fine, Garrus. The Turian just smirked back to him. Shepard, we need your help up here. The blood pack has broken through. Garrus said over the radio. Holy crap, that's huge. She could hear Naruto's voice coming over it too. Naruto, what the hell are you doing? Garrus shouted still on the radio. Garrus, what's going on? Shepard ordered. There was a pause before Garrus came back on. Ah Commander, you're going to have to see this for yourself. I can't explain it. Garrus said in shock. Let's get up there now. Shepard yelled as the final door closed. The 3 took off running back to the main room and ran straight through the main door to see all dead Krogan and Vorcha. Then there was the biggest Krogan they have ever seen get thrown off the balcony where Garrus had been and saw Naruto jump down, his weapons on his back. Naruto grinned as he walked over to the now standing Krogan who threw a punch that went over Naruto's shoulder as he dodged and punched the Krogan with incredible speed in the ribs through his armor, making it crack a little, and saw that there was a kunai embedded in it. Naruto kicked the Krogan's legs out from underneath him and punched him in the face. When the Krogan hit the ground, he made a crater of where he landed on the floor, his face severely bruised. Holy shit, Garrus said from the upper level as he looked down. Commander, I have no idea where you got him, but he just saved my life by killing that Krogan. I can't believe he did it with no weapons. 3 jaws dropped and Naruto scratched the back of his head. I shot his weapon out of his hand as he was charging, didn't I? Naruto argued. Yeah, then kicked his ass off the balcony. Garrus shouted at him. How many is left? Shepard asked, coming out of her shock and walking up the stairs. Well, we have dealt with the Eclipse and the Blood Pack, so just the Blue Suns. Garrus replied as he looked through his scope. There was a roar of the engine and the gunship hover up the side of the building, making everyone take cover. I thought I took that thing out. It's not fully fixed, Naruto told him, and Garrus nodded as he pulled out his assault rifle and fired a volley of rounds into the shields. The gunship turned to him and fired at Garrus and he fell to the ground, blue blood forming around him. Garrus, Naruto and Shepard shouted. Naruto pulled out his assault rifle and ran at the gunship, dodging the line of bullets that it fired at him, and dived off from the ledge of the balcony onto the gunship, much to the Blue Sun's commander's shock. Naruto pointed the gun at the glass and fired. The shields held for a moment before they dropped, and the pilot was killed, and the gunship went spiraling down, and Naruto jumped off and landed on the bridge linking the two buildings. Naruto, Jacob and Shepard were standing around the table in the meeting room waiting for the report from Dr. Chakwas. "We did all we could, Commander, but I don't know if it will be a no." He was cut off by the door sliding open and Garrus walking through. "Tough son of a bitch," Jacob finished as he walked past Garrus and left to his post. "Nobody gave me a mirror. How bad is it?" "It's going to show, buddy," Shepard said with a small smile. "Chicks love a man with scars." Garrus grinned and Shepard only shook her head. "Of course, most of those women are Krogan." "Naruto, we need to talk about why you left the ship," Shepard said as she turned to him. He gulped and braced for the lecture, but none came. "If you weren't there, we may not have made it, thank you." Naruto smiled at her and nodded. "Thank you as well, Naruto. I heard how you took down that gunship, pretty impressive." Garrus replied as Naruto grinned. "It's no problem, I'll be in my quarters." "So Commander, where did you pick him up?" Shepard laughed a little as she told him of finding Naruto's species. Kasumi Goto was the newest member of the Normandy crew. She had spoken to Shepard when she first went to the Citadel and was told to board the ship whenever she was ready. She was a master thief, not known by many, and that was the way that she liked it. She couldn't be a thief if everyone in the galaxy knew of her, right? She had been brought upon the Normandy and had instantly went to one of the observation rooms to only find that it was occupied already by a blonde who looked a year older than she did. The strange thing was that he was sitting on the glass that was of the window, his back was facing the ground while he was facing the roof. She had almost screamed when he bent his head back, had rolled his eyes into the back of his head and muttered, "I'm going to eat you." Showing his grown canines, she ran out of the room and went straight for the other observation deck. She could swear that he could shout after her, that was meant for Shepard. She was contemplating on whether or not to go down to engineering. She had told Shepard what had happened, and she said that she would have a few words with the blonde about idiotic pranks, but Kasumi could see that she was trying to hide a devilish grin. That was 2 days ago. Naruto was sitting in his room looking out the window into space. He knew that this mission was dangerous, but he was never one to not look danger in the face and not continuously make fun of it for some idiotic reason. But he had yet to see what these collectors were made of. He wasn't one for waiting. Even when he fought Madara, he didn't really expect to survive. He just charged in with the full force of Kurama's chakra from the beginning. He even fought recklessly against Sasuke, hoping a hit would take his life, but Sasuke was just too damn predictable. "When are we going to get to fuck some shit up again?" the fox asked from within the seal. "When we get another ground mission," Naruto replied. "Tay," was all he got in response. "Naruto, what are you doing?" Kelly asked from behind him. She had come down with some more data pads for him to read. "Hey Kelly, I was just thinking about some stuff, nothing important." He smiled at her. She smiled back and sat next to him cross-legged like he was. "I brought you some more data pads. There are a few more dossiers in there that the elusive man has forwarded to the commander." She continued to smile. "I heard that you and Garrus played some tricks on the commander yesterday." She smiled and she only got a devilish grin in return. Flashback. Naruto and Garrus were on the engineering deck, looking through the shuttle when they heard footsteps behind them. Shepard was standing there in her usual attire that she wore aboard the Normandy. Most of the male personnel were all on the engineering deck and she had no idea why. Even Joker was down here. He had limped out of the elevator after she had when it came back down. She looked around to find all the male personnel standing behind her. "What is with everyone today?" she asked, looking around, and she could hear Naruto and Garrus trying not to laugh behind her. She looked back at the two and eyed them suspiciously before they broke out into full-blown laughter. "What the hell is the matter with you two?" she growled. There was a loud wolf whistle from up on the balcony which came from the one and only Zaid Masani. "Nice panties there, Shepard." He grinned as he walked back into his little trash room. Shepard glanced down and saw that there was nothing wrong, but when she looked at her ass, both cheeks were fairly visible through the hole that had been cut with pink underwear with a logo saying, "Spank Me," in black letters printed across it. Naruto and Garrus continued to laugh and the rest, even Joker, bailed on the two. "You're both dead," she yelled. It was all Garrus' idea. Naruto yelled as he burst into smoke, showing that he was a clone. "Oh, you backstabbing ass monkey!" Garrus shouted as Shepard attacked him. Flashback end. Yeah, that was fun. Naruto smiled, remembering how he had spanked her right on her left ass cheek that same night when she had started to leave after coming down to speak with him, only for her to look over her shoulder with an innocent look and a small pouting smile and say, "Spank me harder next time." He was completely and utterly stunned by that as she left. "That wasn't just fun, kid, that was classic. And here I thought you were in a bad mood. Just bored. You two get along well." Joker and Garrus seemed to like her smiling. Kelly said as she stood up. "It's late, I should probably get going. Shepard has gone with Kasumi for a mission, and when she gets back she is going to help Zaid with a few things that he wants settled." Naruto nodded and she left after a while of thinking about what he was going to do after the final mission. He fell asleep after that and awoke when he had a dream of when he was a child and he was being beaten again. He sighed as he stood up and decided that he should work on his jutsu as they seemed weaker when he was inside his armor for some reason. He stealthily made his way to the engineering deck, hoping not to run into Garrus as he was not a very decent person in the mornings, especially very early in the morning. The engineering deck was where the training room was and he got into his armor. He had to chuckle as he looked at the red clouds. He must say that they were stylish in their own way. The room was quite large and had white walls. There were weapons along the walls and it was near indestructible. When he had first wanted to try out a Rasengan in space, this is where he did it, only for it to be tiny. He stood in the training room and made a clone. "After all these years I still can't make one on my own." He smiled to himself. He placed his hand out and the clone knew what to do as it started channeling its own chakra along with Naruto's chakra, and a small blue sphere started to create itself but didn't go past that. Naruto forced more chakra into it along with the clone and his armor started to shock him. Visible lightning was manifesting itself in the small room. Without warning, the Rasengan grew larger than it was meant to and exploded in his face, dispelling the clone and sounding the alarm on the ship. Naruto was unconscious when he was taken to the med bay and Dr. Chakwas was in shock when they finally got the ruined armor of him. His body was riddled with small cuts and his left side of his torso had a massive scar over where his heart was, and when she saw the back it went right through, meaning that he should be dead. What drew the doctor's attention was that the new wounds that he had just inflicted on himself were already starting to heal at a massive rate. She was in awe. It was 4 days before Naruto awoke and found that there was a weight on his arm. When he opened his eyes he saw a mass of red hair and knew exactly who it was. She stirred in her sleep as Naruto saw where he was. "No matter where I go it's always the hospital." He sighed. Shepard was still asleep, so he decided to let her as he rested his head. "You know, she has only left when we went to get Jack. And I must say I had to drag her out of here. She was very reluctant," Garrus said as he entered the med bay. Naruto smiled up at him and Garrus yawned. "You were out for quite a while, buddy. 4 days without you on the ship, I thought I was going to go insane." Naruto chuckled at this. "I even just started to bang my head on the wall when Dr. Chakwas came and found me." He grinned. "So what's Jack like?" Naruto asked. "Hell of a biotic, but has the personality of a freaking psychopath. I swear she tried to kick me out of the airlock half a dozen times." Garrus sighed as he sat down in a chair. "I've come to find you as a friend, Naruto. I was the one who dragged your mangled ass up here." "What happened down there?" "I was trying to get my jutsu to work in my armor." Garrus looked at him oddly. "It didn't work?" Naruto shook his head. "Biotics work just fine with them. Why wouldn't this chakra? Naruto corrected. "I don't know. I might ask that Solarian scientist guy about it. He might know," Naruto said as he felt Shepard stir again. "It's been a while since I have seen her that calm and relaxed, probably before Vermeer," Garrus said as he looked towards the sleeping Shepard. "I'm glad you're the one to make her happy, Naruto." He smiled. Naruto looked to the woman to his side and smiled himself. "Maybe we should stop playing pranks on her?" Naruto asked. "It probably would be for the best." Garrus started. "Nah," they both said at the same time and grinned. Shepard stirred and her eyes fluttered open as Garrus left the room, and she instantly stood up and slapped Naruto across the face. "Not quite the reaction I was hoping for, but I think I deserved that." Naruto trailed off as he felt her arms wrap around him. "What the hell were you doing?" she said and sounded to Naruto as if she was trying to hold back sobs. I can't. Not again. Naruto, promise me you won't do anything reckless ever again." Naruto pulled back from the hug and looked into her blue eyes. I promise. Naruto replied with a smile as she hugged him again, and he could feel that her tears were wetting his shirt. I would never do anything to hurt you. He whispered to her. The planet Corless was all but dead. There were ruined buildings, and that was all Naruto needed to have some fun with. He was with Garrus scouting out some area while Shepard, Miranda and Morden were going the more direct way. It had been 2 days since Naruto awoke, and he had gone to see Morden almost immediately. He told him of what happened, and the scientist immediately had started running tests on the chakra system and was amazed. He was even able to modify Naruto's armor so that he could use his chakra to its full potential again. Naruto and the scientist were best friends after that. Well, Shepard came first, then Garrus, then Morden. It was a long list of people before the Solarian, but at the moment he was in the top 3. Garrus was amazed at how much power the chakra system gave Naruto. It was like he was a biotic god or something, but there was no blue light. They had come up against 3 heavily armed merc groups and over a dozen mindless Krogan that Okir must have created. They had easily dealt with all of them. Naruto even wanted to try hand-to-hand combat again, but Garrus reminded him of his promise to Shepard not to do anything reckless, so he pouted and took them out with his sniper rifle. As Naruto jumped over a crumbled wall, Garrus followed while watching the blonde and could easily see that there was something on his mind and didn't know whether to approach the matter or wait until they were out of combat. Naruto? Garrus started while the blonde looked back. Yeah, what is it? What's on your mind? You seem a little bit out of it. Garrus said as he looked around, making sure everything was clear. Nothing is wrong, Garrus, let's keep moving. Naruto replied as he looked ahead. Naruto. I said let's keep moving. Damn it, Naruto, what the hell is the matter with you? Garrus yelled at the blonde, whose sweat dropped when he heard a few voices over a wall. Well, there goes being subtle. Naruto replied as he ran to the wall, and Garrus thought he was going to run around it, but he channeled chakra to his feet and ran up it and jumped over it and started shooting. Garrus could see the enemy's fire as it went upwards, then stopped. Garrus, next time there are enemies near, stay quiet, would you? Naruto said as he walked around the side of the wall. Garrus' sweat dropped and nodded as he followed the blonde. Garrus, what is going on over there? Shepard asked over the radio. Ah, nothing, just a small squad is all. Garrus replied as he followed Naruto to a nearby building, and they both entered it and headed for the stairs. I think we are nearing the labs to where Okir is. Good, we are just about to get through some more mercs. We will meet you outside the door, we will wait for you. Shepard replied and the radio went quiet. Garrus and Naruto both made their way up the building to one of the higher-up floors of the building, which was open, and they could see the remains of the dead mercs that Shepard's team had gone through and knew they were on the right track. They followed the trail of dead bodies and soon found the 3 talking with an Asari. Rana Thanoptis was back on Vermeer and let Shepard and her team back into Saren's lab, and she was able to escape the explosion. Rana, it would be best if you got out of here. Shepard started and the Asari nodded as she ran out of the room. The 3 watched and saw that Garrus and Naruto walked in after she had left. Making friends, again, I see. Garrus chuckled. And I thought we were the only friends she needed. Naruto pouted. Shut it, you too. Shepard growled as she opened the door and found a Krogan standing next to a terminal next to a Krogan inside of a tank filled with suspicious-looking liquid. Naruto immediately ran over to the tank and looked inside, face pressed up against the glass. He ignored what was being said, and he had to remove himself from the glass when he heard an explosion and looked out the window, which looked out onto more tanks and a blonde woman standing down there in what looked like Blue Sun's armor. You need to stop Jedor, she will ruin everything. The Krogan, now known as Okir, said. I will stay here and finish what I started. He finished as he turned back to the terminal. Move out, we have to take Jedor down and get back here. All of you with me, who knows what that crazy bitch has got down there? Garrus and Naruto just smirked as they followed the commander down the stairs. Miranda and Morden shrugged their shoulders and left the lab and followed after the group. I want them dead. Jedor yelled as more and more Krogan piled out of their tanks and took up arms. And did anyone else think, why the fuck did they come out of their tanks with weapons and armor? Or was it just me? Shepard and Garrus took some cover over the far left of the room, leaving Morden and Miranda in the center with Naruto on the right on his own. Fuck this, I'm doing it my way. Reckless or not. Ready, Fox? Naruto screamed to himself. Fuck yeah, let's blow some shit up. The Kyuubi yelled and Naruto could just smirk as he holstered his pistol at his hip. He rushed out of his cover and he heard a yell for him to get back into cover from Shepard but didn't listen as he started to head for a Krogan who had dropped his weapon and started to charge at the blonde. The Krogan was sloppy compared to Naruto as Naruto slid on his side and kicked the Krogan's legs out from underneath him and the brute went upwards and started to fall onto the blonde only to receive a kick to his midsection from underneath him. Naruto couldn't help but grin. These Krogan were meant to be warriors from birth but they were just like the rest. The Krogan stood up and another charged at the blonde from behind who back-flipped over him making both Krogan collide. There was a ear-splitting yell as the first Krogan's spine snapped underneath the force from the other Krogan. "My bad," Naruto said sheepishly as he summoned 3 clones and headed for the Krogan who shook his head and swung at one of the blondes only to get it kicked away and another foot into his face from another clone which sent him sprawling into the other 2 who had a blue sphere in his hands with a grin on his face. Rasengan. The blue sphere completely tore open the Krogan's armor and blood spurted out when Naruto removed his hand. He drew both of his pistols and ran towards the remaining 3 Krogan. He stepped up on a dead Krogan and launched himself into the air in a reverse backflip. As he glided over them he shoot down on the Krogans killing them instantly all with head shots. He landed next to the heavy mech only to get punched by it and sent flying into a nearby wall. "Naruto!" Shepard yelled trying to see if the blonde was okay. "Miranda, take down his shields," Garrus ordered. Miranda nodded and sent an overload from her Omni tool towards the mech and the shields dropped and everyone sent their rounds towards it making it fall to its knees and blow up. Shepard jumped the cover she was behind and headed for the other side of the room to where Jedor was and found her hiding behind a crate. She snuck up behind the crate, pulled out her shotgun and stood upright much to Jedor's shock and fired a round at point-blank range killing her instantly and leaving her in a mess. She ran over to where Naruto collided with the wall. Garrus, Miranda and Morden were already searching through the rubble and the sight that they found was gruesome. Naruto's left arm was broken and his bone had forced itself out of the skin and past the armor. His face had bruises which were already starting to heal and they all flinched, even Morden, after they saw that the bone retracted into the skin. Naruto grunted at the pain and then stood up. "I'm going to be sore in the morning," Naruto said as he looked over his armor. His arm was already starting to heal itself. What was that?" Miranda asked, a bit shocked. "Shepard, you need to get back to the lab, the alarms have gone off." Edie's voice came over the radio. Shepard looked to her team and they all nodded and headed for the lab, just to see Okier slump to the ground from his terminal. "If I knew anything about the collectors I would tell you, but I do not. Take this, Grunt." Were Okier's last words from the terminal. Shepard looked into the tank looking at the Krogan. "Shepard, we have no idea what this Krogan is like, he may not even be stable." Miranda said, "Get him on board and we will see what it's all about." Garrus said, looking at Naruto's arm. "Joker, we need a pickup and he's a big one." "Boat chicka bow wow," Naruto said and was slapped up the back of the head from Shepard. "Naruto. That was awesome timing," Garrus shouted, making Naruto grin. In the seal, the fox was rolling. "Oh yeah," Naruto laughed as he leans back against a bench, his hands behind his head. "I thought I told you not to be reckless, Naruto," Shepard said as she sat down next to him. "I'm just so used to hand-to-hand combat and as you can see I heal very quickly." He chuckled. "Yep. Hand-to-hand combat is the old-school way to kill your enemies. Killing a man with your bare hands says, we're all equals as men except I'm slightly more equal because I'm still alive and you're dead. Of course dropping a nuke on them from 50,000 feet is totally acceptable. I mean, let's face it, there's just not enough time in this galaxy to show everybody the courtesy of a good strangling," Garrus firmly stated, and all Shepard and Naruto could do was laugh while Morden and Miranda sweat dropped. "Shepard, I would not recommend awakening the Krogan at this time," Eddie said over the radio. "This is my ship, now give me the controls," Shepard ordered. "The controls are yours along with the consequences." Shepard opened the tank and the suspicious liquid drained out of it. The hatch popped open, the Krogan fell forwards. He looked around with his blue-slitted eyes and saw Shepard and immediately rushed her and held her up by the throat. "Human, female, before I kill you I need a name." The Krogan said. He felt a tap on his shoulder and he looked to his left and saw Naruto with a shit-eating grin on his face as he punched the Krogan square in the face. The Krogan stumbled backwards and held his hand up to his face. "I like you, but you are not human. You can tell that?" Naruto asked as he raised an eyebrow. "You do not smell like a human. I still need a name." While Okir's last word were along the lines of Grunt. I like it. Who is your female subordinate? This caused a tick to form on Shepard's head and Naruto to chuckle. I am Commander Shepard and Naruto is my subordinate. I see. Before we test our skills as warriors, where am I? You want to fight? Shepard asked. I was bred to fight. I have the minds of the most feared Krogan warlords. I crave the feeling. Naruto patted him on the shoulder. I feel the same, but Shepard here gets her enemies from some shop called Galaxy Killers, Aras. I say that you help us against the collectors and you get your fill of battle. I will help you, Shepard and Blonde. Naruto raised an eyebrow. My name's Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. If you want to spar later, let me know. He said with a foxy grin and left, letting Shepard talk with the Krogan. Naruto stood looking at the galaxy map and not noticing Shepard come out of the elevator behind him. She strolled up behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist. If you're going to be reckless, can you let me know beforehand so I know that shit is going to go down? She asked as she nuzzled her head into his shoulders. He relaxed and sighed. Of course, just if things get too hectic, I want you to get out of there. I don't want to lose you. He said as he placed a hand on one of her arms that was around him. He could slightly feel her nod in agreement. Ah. Commander, there is a request from the elusive man. I'll patch it through to the meeting room. Joker said. Naruto looked up down to where Joker was sitting and could see that he had a light smirk on his face. Naruto growled and Joker immediately turned around and looked out a window. Duty calls, I'll see you later. Naruto nodded and continued to look at the galaxy map. He looked over his shoulder as Shepard walked into the army to go into the meeting room and smirked. He waited a minute before following her and opened the meeting room door and saw Shepard standing to the center of the room where the table usually was, and an orange grid pattern surrounded her. What is she doing on Horizon? Shepard asked. Naruto looked at the grid as Shepard had yet to notice him and stuck his head in and could see what looked to be a dark room with a few orange computer panels, a large blue and red sun behind him. There was a man sitting in a chair and looked like he had synthetic eyes like Sasuke, but these eyes were blue and more noticeable. Shepard, who is that? The man in the chair asked. Shepard turned around and looked at Naruto and he just gave a sheepish grin. This is one of my crew and has saved our asses a number of times. Shepard replied. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.